Hello, my name is Christina Valencia, and here is my Community Quest project slideshow. So, I'm not student teaching currently, but the last school I was at was Roosevelt Middle School, and that is located in Balboa Park, also known as the heart of San Diego. As it's located in downtown, it's pretty much central to everything in San Diego. Let me go to the next slide. So, some history and background of Balboa Park. It was first established in 1868 as the city park. During World War II, a lot of the buildings were used for the U.S. Navy extensions of the Balboa Naval Hospital. So, a lot of the buildings, were used during this war. Um, Now, Balboa Park is kind of known as a hub for museums, gardens, fine art, architecture, and culture in general. And finally, some neighborhoods that surround Balboa Park are North Park, South Park, Golden Hill, Hillcrest, and Bankers Hill, as you can see in this map in the bottom right corner. And some schools near Balboa Park are Roosevelt Middle School, as I've already mentioned, and San Diego High School, which is another school that I have also worked at as a substitute teacher. So, some diversity statistics or demographics I would want to go over real quick are the racial identity groups in Balboa Park, which, as you can see, a majority identify as white, but the next majority is Hispanic or Latino at 30.2%, which is a very big percentage when compared to the other races, such as being an African American or others, such as Asian, American Indian, Hawaiian, or other race. Additionally, the residents in this area are mostly male at 61%, 39% female, and a majority of the people who live in Balboa Park are 73% single parent families. So as you can see, there's a lot of independent parents kind of running the household, having to maintain that income. And at the very bottom, you can see that the median home price of a home in Balboa Park is over $1 million. So those families or individuals with lower incomes or lower socioeconomic backgrounds, they're less likely to live in or own these homes in Balboa Park, which leads to more of the affluent populations housing these neighborhoods rather than those who may be native to that neighborhood. So furthermore, zooming in more onto Roosevelt Middle School rather than Balboa Park as a whole, the student demographics here are a majority of minority identifying students. So if you look at the graph, we can see that 76.3% identify as minorities. Over half of the students are economically disadvantaged. So if you look at the very bottom right here, we see this little pie chart, and it says economically disadvantaged students at Roosevelt International Middle School. So basically, these students do not have, stable housing, or they might experience food insecurity, stuff like that, that can really impact their learning, which I will talk about more in the next slide. So as I just mentioned, houselessness, it's another word for homeless, but homeless seems to have, a negative connotation. So, I'm trying to be intentional with my language and use the word house since we're focusing on, the physical house and not like a home. We're going to talk about houselessness and its effects on, the students and the families. So as I just mentioned, 63% of the students there are economically disadvantaged. So as research has shown, students without stable housing, they're less likely to achieve as well academically when compared to students who have more affluent backgrounds. When you're worried about where you're going to sleep that night or what you're going to eat or stuff like that, it's very hard to focus and find motivation to complete school assignments. So we can also see that this kind of economic disadvantage leads to less access to certain resources that might be beneficial for certain students. So, for example, this could be like extra school supplies, or it could be hiring a tutor, stuff like that, that more affluent students have access to, and those with, less affluence do not have access to. Additionally, there is an issue of safety in Balboa Park, as homelessness has soared by more than 60% in downtown San Diego and the surrounding areas, according to the Voice of San Diego. And since Balboa Park is located literally right next to downtown, this is a huge issue that also impacts the students that go to Roosevelt Middle School. And some further crime statistics that we can look at since May 8th, 2022, there's been 14 assaults, 12 arrests, 11 thefts, 4 vandalisms, 3 burglaries, 3 robberies, and 1 report of arson. So while I'm sure there might be schools that are, more dangerous than this, it's still not the most ideal place you would want to send your child, especially if you come from, a low socioeconomic background where you're already stressed about so many other factors in your life. Adding this problem of your child going to school safely is not the most beneficial thing to add onto your plate. So, ways to incorporate community knowledge into these students' lives. I believe that instructors should emphasize in their classrooms these 3 things. So, the first is culturally responsive pedagogy, which allows students to explore their identity and their culture within the school curriculum. So, this can include things like asking students to reflect on their own personal experiences, as well as having them, identify characteristics of certain identities and personality traits throughout a text. So either way, it's finding ways to relate to the student's identity and their own personal culture. Next is social justice. So finding out ways that we can, help out and be active members of our community. In more specifically, there's ways that we can be more active to the houseless community over here in Balboa Park. And another one I wanted to mention was sustainability. So making sure that we emphasize the benefits of recycling, upcycling, repurposing, DIY projects. This could, be a fun activity, as well as it's benefiting all of the lower income students who can't necessarily afford extra school supplies or food or all these things that, might enhance their learning experience. So if we can learn ways to incorporate this kind of sustainable, way of thinking, we're able to, help the environment first and foremost, and also help those students with, less access to resources figure out how they can, make their way. Finally, some ELA and social studies applications. An idea I had was an informative essay on what events have led to the current housing crisis in Balboa Park and or like downtown areas. Students could also craft a personal narrative or poem about their own identity and maybe even how their identity has been shaped by their local surroundings, their neighborhood, their home. Another thing could be, doing some volunteer work at a local shelter or food kitchen, and then writing a reflection on the importance of charity or, what that experience meant to the student. And then a final idea I had was some kind of art project where students can design their ideal Balboa Park that, addresses these issues such as houselessness or food insecurity, stuff like that. What would their ideal version of their neighborhood be? So that is my presentation.